Hey there everybody, Mazarok here, and today we are going to be redoing the beginner's guide for Dragonflight for Protection Warrior. There's a new format that I've started with that I'm a lot happier with, and just some information I feel I did not properly get across, so I really wanted to do that. So as this video goes live, the older one is going to be unlisted. Before we do get into it though, please do like, comment, subscribe. It goes such a long way to helping out the channel. If you're looking for a written version of this guide as well, check out the tankclub.com. There is a link for my Protection Warrior guide up on that site right now. So if you like the written format, great place to go get it, as well as any other MMOs. So right now there's Albion, Elder Scrolls Online. I'm working on WoW, and the work is going out to more MMOs to be able to be like a one-stop shop for all tanks, no matter what game you like to play. Also, thank you to my patrons for making videos like this happen. This is also an early access video for my patrons as well. Since I do record a lot of videos ahead of time, I give them early access to these videos before they go live on YouTube. So if that's something you would like, you can join my Patreon down below, as well as other goodies. I do my drafts and my work in progress. Everything's posted as I'm kind of finishing work for the time being. Sometimes I can only put an hour, 2 hours, or whatever into a guide, and I post everything that's written. So early access stuff there as well for the tankclub.com. And of course, Twitch. Check me out on stream, and Discord if you want to join a wonderful community full of great people. Alright, with Warrior, let's get into active mitigations and defensives first. So with Warrior, your main form of active mitigation is shield block. So you raise your shield, blocking all melee attacks against you for X amount of seconds, depending on talents. Here it's 8 seconds with the talents that I have. These blocks can be critical blocks because of mastery. We'll get into that a little bit later. And while shield block is up, shield slam damage is increased by 30%. So obviously you have varying reasons on why you want full effective shield block combat uptime. This is the most busted form of active mitigation out of pretty much any of the tanks in World of Warcraft. This is absolutely crazy what can just be shield block from you doing your rotation properly and building it up. It does have a variable cooldown depending on haste, but yeah, shield block uptime, so crazy important, it's unreal. It's one of your 3 main rage spenders, along with Ignore Pain and Revenge, but should always be your priority to always have that uptime. If you ever feel like you're just getting slammed and you don't know why, check your shield block uptime, because if that drop, it hurts. The next one is Ignore Pain. So on the Protection Warrior tree right here, fight through the pain, ignoring 50% of damage taken, totaling based on an amount based on attack power prevented. So this stacks up to twice and is another form of active mitigation. The combination of shield block and ignore pain is really what makes Prot Warrior incredibly tanky. So this costs 35 rage, has a 1-second cooldown, so you are able to constantly keep this up. On DPS specs, I know the cooldown is a little bit higher, but combining shield block and ignore pain as your 2 main rage spenders, priority rage spenders first, is really what makes Prot Warriors hard to kill, because this can go up fairly high with things like Violent Outburst, having Blood Fury active for an Orc, or things like that, if you have any racials that increase attack power. All around, though, this is very, very strong, and you should always try to be keeping a stack or 2 up, because you will definitely start feeling squishier towards magic damage if you don't have active ignore pains up. So up next we do have defensives. You know, instead of active mitigation, defensives. Now we're going to talk about defensive stance here, because most of the time as a Prot Warrior you're going to be living in battle stance, because you just aren't taking enough damage to warrant defensive stance full time. Now, against Croth, when the Savage Rend comes out, that is a great time to swap to defensive stance, especially when he's at that 3 to 4 stacks, just to mitigate some of the bleed, which Warrior doesn't deal with particularly well. So defensive stance is something that you definitely want to be using as an on-demand 15% damage reduction when you need it. Caveat is it comes with a 10% damage reduction that you deal. Demoralizing Shout has a base cooldown of 45 seconds, and it reduces all damage that enemies deal to you by 20% for 8 seconds. Now, this is something that you need to apply to the mobs around you. It does have a 15-yard range, so do note you can't like just go into combat, hit it without hitting anything and get the benefits, right? You do absolutely need to apply this to mobs. And then up next we have Shield Wall Baseline. This is a 3.5 minute cooldown that reduces all damage you take by 40% for 8 seconds. Now, I do have Defender's Aegis talented currently, but we will talk about Impenetrable Wall, Defender's Aegis in the talent portion of this video. But this is a very big cooldown and makes warriors very, very strong and should be utilized proactively to reduce big hits. If you're the type of tank that is reactive to damage, like you go from 100 to 40 and then you hit your cooldown, that's kind of everything against how Prot Warrior works. They are really good at not taking damage, but does require you to be proactive with your defensives to make sure that you are just not taking any damage at all. And when you start to utilize that properly, you'll notice that, you know, you are just a monster to kill. Like, it's very, very difficult. Going into stats. So, Critical Strike is an okay important stat. It increases our parry chance based on the rating, not the percentage of critical strike. And of course, it increases our damage. Now, another talent this does have synergies with, sorry, wrong button, is Best Served Cold. So when you successfully dodge or parry an attack, it makes your next revenge free of cost and deal increased damage. So this is why you don't completely want to ignore Critical Strike, but it's not your primary stat that you're focusing on, right? But parry does have some relevance to the spec because being able to get free revenges off is very, very nice. Haste is by far your most important stat. It increases your attack speed and spellcasting speed. It also reduces the base cooldown of Shield Block, Thunderclap, and Shield Slam. So with this, you want to be hitting buttons faster, and you want those buttons to come back off cooldown faster. So haste is by far your most important stat. Mastery is kind of intriguing for Prot Warrior. It's very unique. So what it is, it's critical block. You increase your chance to block by a base percentage based on your mastery, and your chance to critically block, blocking twice the amount of the damage, of the incoming damage. And it also has a base increase of attack power. So the higher your mastery, the bigger your ignore pains are going to be. But it's the critical block part that's very, very important, but it is also RNG. So it's not a stat that you absolutely want to be, it's not a stat you want to dump, but it's not a stat that you're trying to focus on either. Up next is Versatility. So Versatility increases all damage and healing done, and decreases the damage taken at a 50% value. Now, since Prot Warrior is really good at not taking damage, Versatility helps you not take damage. Very important stat, and this should be one of your priority stats that you are absolutely going. So in kind of an order that I would say would be really good for your prioritization would be haste, versatility, and then critical strike and mastery second. Depending on the content you're doing, sometimes mastery can be a little bit more valuable, sometimes crit can be a little bit more valuable, so just try to kind of keep them a little bit more even. I'm running a whetstone, which is giving me a nice big chunk of mastery, so that's where I'm keeping that up, and I'm a really big fan of secondaries to begin with and trying to increase all of them where I can. As for consumables, you should pretty much always be running Howling Rune. There's no reason to not run the haste rune here. So here we have Howling Rune. At a 3-star rune, it increases your haste by 310 for 2 hours. It's a no-brainer. Go ahead and grab it. My main file of choice, by the way, is the file of Tepid Versatility, so I'll put one on right now. This increases your versatility by a nice large chunk, 745 for a 3-star. I'm a big fan of secondaries, and this is a nice way to shore up a stat that's not easy to get on gear. Versatility is fairly tough to get on plate gear right now throughout all of the different dungeons and raids, and getting the amount that you want and need can be difficult. This is a nice, easy, cheap way to shore up a secondary stat that you like, because these things right now are like 30 gold on my server for 3 stars, so I really, really like it. But a great option that I will use, especially on fortified weeks, is File of the Eye of the Storm. So your strength is increased by 130 for each enemy that has struck you, stacking up to 5 times. Choose which one you want. I know these ones have been a little bit more pricey on my server, so unless I absolutely am aiming for a push key or I want to time something in particular, I'm really trying to perform, I'll go with the Eye of the Storm. But in most cases, a Phial of Tepid Versatility just does the job and is great for all content. Of course, you know, you want the Strength Battle Pot for enchants. Try and stick with haste and versatility where you need it. Regenerative Leech and Leech on Bracers are really good for the cloak and bracers. Waking stats for the chest. Fierce Armor Kit gives you the nice primary stat and stamina upgrade on your pants and is permanent. It's not a consumable anymore. And then Watcher's Loan gives you a nice nice stamina buff on your boots. And you can opt for Frozen Devotion for your weapon or Sophic Devotion. Now, Frozen Devotion is purely a damage proc, and you will get no defensive benefit from it. If you feel like you want something that offers both a variety of offensive and defensive, Sophic Devotion will be the right one for you. With the content that I'm doing, I'm feeling more than comfortable that a little bit of increased tankiness is not going to serve me as much as, you know, Frozen Devotion. Frozen Devotion does deal very, very nice damage all around. So that is good for enchants and consumables. Let's get into talents, and I want to talk about a couple of the talents that I have set up here. This is the base build that I work off of. This is the base build that I work off of, and there's a lot of synergies here that are really, really nice. Of course, you want to go down the center to grab Devastator, Strategist. So then that way, with Devastator and Strategist, you're going to be getting a lot of Shield Slam resets, which is very, very nice. Grab Rend as well. Don't put it on your bars because Blood and Thunder over here on the class tree automatically applies Rend to 5 targets. So you do not need to be manually applying Rend to spread it. Thunderclap will just do it for you, which is very, very nice. And that also has a lot of synergies with Blood Surge. This is more of my Mythic Plus build. You can bring this into Raid and opt out of some more AoE-focused talents, but this is up to you. I play a lot more Mythic Plus than I do Raid, but Blood Surge is huge. Your bleed effects have a chance to grant you 5 Rage. That is Rend, that is Deep Wounds, and that is also Thunderous Words. Then Thunderous Words, I'm getting ahead of myself, increases the duration of your Thunderous Roar's bleed and increases the damage of all of your bleed effects by 15% at all times. So Rend gets a 15% damage amp. Deep Wounds gets a 15% damage amp by taking this talent on this side, which is very good and very strong. Spell Block is one of the most underrated talents that you can take. This does now. I didn't see a lot of value in this when I was playing. We were going through the early key stages of the expansion in the 2 to 11 range. I found that Ignore Pain and Shield Block did more than what I needed, and I just wasn't taking damage. But once I started getting into the 15, 16, and the 20 ranges, while still being a little under-geared for them, Spell Block puts in work. This allows you to block spells for 20 seconds on a 1.5 minute cooldown. This is huge for dungeons like Ruby Life Pools. The last mob pull in Temple of the Jade Serpent that absolutely crushes tanks. Spell Reflect and Spell Block do so much work there. It's absolutely unreal. Because the Dark Claws are now blockable magic damage with Spell Block. Now, speaking of Spell Reflect is a 20-second cooldown for Protection Warrior. This will reflect or deflect spells that are cast on you. So it's getting a Spell Reflect tracker. I can link. I'll link my weak auras. It's a Patreon document, but it's free for everyone. If you want to go in and grab the Spell Reflect weak aura, I think there's a Spell Reflect Essentials. I'm not the one that made it. Thank you so much to the person that made it, because it's been so good, because there's a lot to kind of track to just know, oh, hey, something's targeting me, Spell Reflect now, very nice. But there's a change in Dragonflight where this reduces the magic damage you take by 20% for 5 seconds, but it does not expire upon reflecting or deflecting a spell anymore. It is just straight up a 20% magic damage mitigation for 5 seconds. So a very useful defensive on top of an offensive use. For example, Court of Stars, the little succubuses, whatnot, that do the Shadow Slash, that is spell reflectable for a lot of damage. So that's something that you might want to be looking into and going for. Now, I did say I would talk about Defender's Aegis and Impenetrable Wall. Now, Defender's Aegis has kind of generally been my go-to safe, safe pick. You gain an additional charge of Shield Wall, and its cooldown is reduced by 30 seconds. This has been something over time that I've kind of changed, especially due to bosses like Croth and Lou Flameheart, which are notoriously bad for protection warriors. Getting the second charge of Shield Block consecutively after another for the Jade Serpent strikes, so you always have a big damage mitigation for that, is really key to your survival. The Savage Wrens as well on the boss fights, if you get them up to 3-4 stacks, you can shield wall the 3rd and 4th. Once they reset, you can wait until the 3rd and 4th if the fight is going on that long again, and you'll start getting your shield walls back due to anger management. Every 10 rage you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of Avatar and shield wall by 1 second. This reduces shield wall down to a much lower cooldown. We're talking a minute to a minute and a half. But Impenetrable Wall is also very strong because Shield Slam generates an additional 3 rage, which is very nice because Shield Slam generates a lot of rage for you, and reduces the remaining cooldown of Shield Wall by 5 seconds per use. Now, this will only have 1 charge of Shield Wall, but in consistent combat scenarios where you're just always burning rage, getting Shield Slam procs, and using them, you will consistently be able to get Shield Wall down to a 45-second to a minute cooldown, which is very, very strong. So you don't need 2 consecutive charges of Shield Wall in every single dungeon. Impenetrable Wall is a nice passive rage gain and giving you constant uses of Shield Wall when you do need them. Another thing I would be tracking here is Violent Outburst. Consuming 30 stacks, consuming 30 rage grants a stack of Seeing Red, which transforms at 8 stacks into Violent Outburst, which causes your next Shield Slam or Thunderclap to deal 200% increased damage and generate 100% more rage and grant Ignore Pain. So in big AoE scenarios, the 200% increase to damage to Thunderclap is big because Thunderclap does damage now in Dragonflight, which is really, really nice. But it doesn't generate the rage that Shield Slam does. And Shield Slam deals big damage to priority targets and can also fill up your rage bar by 66%. So I'd say in most scenarios, you're going to try to be opting to use Shield Slam with your Violent Outburst, but it's no longer basically you had an X on your Thunderclap bar in Shadowlands when you had this as your tier set because you absolutely did not wanting to use your Violent Outburst on Thunderclap. Now it's not as bad. You don't get the nice rage gen of Shield Slam, but 200% increased damage to Thunderclap is really nice because Thunderclap slaps, especially with abilities like Show of Force. Revenge deals increased damage, and your Revenge increases the damage of your next Thunderclap by 20%. These are all things that compound and stack up nicely. Now, I did say there were a lot of talents in here as well that, fed into Shield Block. Bolster reduces the cooldown of Last Stand by 60 seconds, making it a 2-minute cooldown, and grants you the Shield Block effect for its duration. That's a 15-second Shield Block on a 2-minute cooldown just for pressing the button, which is insanely nice. Then we also have Champion's Bulwark down here underneath the Shield Charge. What this does is Shield Charge will increase damage, great, but will grant you Shield Block, will grant you a Revenge proc as well, and generate an additional 20 rage. This is obviously a go-to pick, very, very good, and with Bolster Last Stand, with Champion's Bulwark, and Enduring Defensives here, you are easily capable of maintaining 100% Shield Block uptime, which if anybody played Prot Warrior in Shadowlands, you know that was not always the easiest thing to do at all. So this is very easy to get, and Enduring Defensives increases Shield Block by 2 seconds per cast. So this is really, really nice for your base Shield Block uptime. Flex talent here is Into the Fray and Heavy Repercussions. Now, Into the Fray, you gain 2% haste for each enemy or ally within 10 yards, up to 10%. This has got pretty much full uptime at 10% in most scenarios. Like if you're in a raid with 20 people, there's going to be 5 other people around you at all times. In Mythic Plus, there's always an assortment of enemies and friends nearby. You're going to be getting the big benefit of this. But once you are geared to the point where you have a nice haste breakpoint and you're happy with it, you can swap to Heavy Repercussions, which will make Shield Slam generate 2 more rage and extend the duration of shield block by 1 second. With this talent, you can actually free up the Enduring Defensives point because you won't need it, and you can put it somewhere else because this will still give you that 100% combat effective uptime as long as you have enough base haste to be able to compensate for it. So you could gain an extra talent point that way when you're comfortable enough. But as you're learning the spec, go with the haste. It's going to do you way more favors than not. Also, Booming Voice, key talent here. So Demoralizing Shout generates 30 rage and is a 20% damage amp for you as well. Very, very powerful, all around very strong. We'll talk about a couple more flex points right now. Bloodborne, very strong. Deep Wounds, Rend, Thunderous Words effect, bleed effects deal up to 20% increased damage, 10% per point. You do have things like Punish, which is really, really good in single target. Juggernaut, which is really good for executes. If you need Disrupting Shout, which takes Challenging Shout down to a 1.5 minute cooldown, and is a full kick within 14 yards. If you pug keys, and you notice nobody's kicking, this talent can do a lot of work for you. I'm telling you, it is absolutely fantastic and can do just an absolute buttload of work for you. With this build, I opt for Shockwave because having a nice AoE stop on a 40-second cooldown is very, very nice. I was running the Shockwave build for a bit just because it's really fun and deals a lot of damage, but you hit your diminishing returns on mob stuns so quickly, and the amount of stun coordination that's required in Dragonflight is absolutely unreal, which kills that build. So the Thunderous Roar, Shockwave tends to be where I like to go. The combination of Honed Reflexes and Concussive Blows, by the way, will allow you to solo kick a lot of things. So for example, in Court of Stars, the charge stations, you can get every single one. The second boss of Court of Stars, the Withering Soul, Withering Burn cast, you can get every single one. If you are in an unorganized pug group, I find that just taking the 2 seconds off of Pummel, your interrupt, is huge. And whenever I'm not playing Warrior and I don't have that short of a kick, on something like Bear, or, not Paladin, of course Paladins can kick everything, but Monk as well, I really feel that higher cooldown of interrupt and having to rely on pugs to actually kick stuff and kick stuff at the right time. This allows you to do so much more, and you wouldn't think about it, but it really does. Options like Pain and Gain are also a great option as well. Passive healing every 10 seconds for taking damage. Bitter immunity, if you do not have a Poison Dispel in Algathar Academy, is huge on the tree boss, allowing you to at least bypass one of the Germinate phases. It's on a 3-minute cooldown, but if you're struggling with that boss without a poison immunity in your group, bitter immunity can be pretty huge. If you're also a Dark Iron Dwarf, most of the time you're only going to be getting 2 Germinate. If the boss is going well, you're only going to get 2 full Germinate phases where they actually put the poison debuff on you, so you can alternate between your dwarf racial and bitter immunity for that, really being able to solo that without a poison dispel. Great option there to pick up, as well as Intimidating Shout, 1.5 minute cooldown. This is a full AoE stop. Well, not full, it's up to 6 targets, but as long as you aren't quadruple pulling something, most of the time as you're learning the spec, most of your pulls are going to be around 5 targets. That's kind of the average and how that's going to be working out. But obviously lots of great picks to grab here. Intervene to help allies out, not take damage, to get out of stuff quick. Lot of great pickup there as well. And lastly, I want to talk about Battle Scarred Veteran. Now this is kind of a pseudo trap for Prot Warriors. Every time that I've played it, the only time it's ever procced is on a full party wipe and I'm trying to die, and it provides me with an 80% damage reduction and I'm not dying. Because pretty much you going below 30% health does not happen that often. This can have great uses on Lou Flameheart, by the way, which will consistently bring you down below 30% health. So this is a talent you might want to pick up from time to time, but generally speaking, you're not going to be proccing this that much if you are playing rotationally well and you have an above average healer. Like, this isn't going to get used a lot. I had this ability for an entire week of Mythic Plus, and I look back at all of my runs, and I'd only procced it once. I procced it a total of 4 times, once meaningfully, where I was like, okay, this was useful. The other 3 were when the entire party died, and I'm trying to die, but I can't reset or jump or, you know, jump off an edge and die or whatever, and I'm just, okay, I get below 30% health, I'm about to die, guys, and then it just goes really slowly, and it just kills time off the Mythic Plus timer. That can be detrimental to a run. All right. So I have talked enough about this build. If you're looking, like I said, if you're looking for the written version, there is a guide down below at thetankclub.com. And thank you again to my patrons for making videos like this happen. I hope that this did help you understand Prot Warrior as kind of a beginner tank. Thank you very much. Have yourself a good one. Happy tank. Bye.